Hi everyone! In this video you're going to see all of our different methods for multiplying polynomials. I suggest having a notebook ready and a pencil so you can take down some notes. Alright, so our first method is just a monomial being multiplied by a polynomial. So really quickly, if you've forgotten, a monomial means that it's just going to be one term, and a polynomial means that it can just be many. It's not very specific. It could be 1, it could be 25. Polynomial is just a group of terms. So the biggest thing to remember for any of these methods is that distribution, or thinking of the distributive property, that is going to help you out. When you forget the steps that you need to take, just think about how can I distribute, okay? So what we're going to be doing is distributing this negative 2x. So let's color code this as we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute it to the first term. So we have negative 2x times 3x squared. Multiply your negative 2 times 3 and you get negative 6. And x times x squared will be x cubed. So now we just want to keep distributing. So we're going to do our negative 2x times negative 4. Negative 2 times negative 4, that's a positive 8. And then x times x, x squared. All right, last one. So we have negative 2x times 5. So this is just values, right? So we have negative 2 times 5 is going to be negative 10. And we still have that x. So we have negative 10x. At this point, if you do have a like term, combine them. So you always want to remember to combine like terms, but that's only if possible. Okay, so remember, like terms have the same variable, same exponent. None of these are like, so this is our final answer. Alright, so that last method was just basically you have one term on the outside, however many on the inside. This method is just a little bit different. This should look familiar, right? The FOIL method is something that you learn many times, but it's something that we always use. So we want to make sure we understand it clearly. So these letters do stand for something. So the F stands for first. That means you're going to multiply the first terms first. The O stands for outer. I stands for inner. And L stands for last. So these are talking about the terms that we're going to be working with. So this is when you have a binomial times a binomial. Remember, that means that it's going to be two terms times two terms. Think of it like a bicycle, how it has two wheels. Binomials have two terms. So let's color code this again. So we're going to start with our first. We're going to do it yellow. So our first terms would be 2x times 4x. So when I do that, I'm going to get 8x squared. My next terms are going to be my O, so outer. So it means I'm going to do the ones that are kind of like our bookends, right? We have 2x times 1, so that's a plus 2x. Now we have our inner terms. So our inner terms are these 3 and the 4x. When we multiply them, we do 3 times 4, and we get 12. And then we just have our x, so it's going to be plus 12x. And then we have our last term. So those are the terms that are last in each binomial, and that's 3 times 1, so that's plus 3. So just like how we talked in our last problem, you do always want to combine like terms. They need to have the same base, same exponent. So 8x squared, we don't have any other x squared, so that's just going to stay 8x squared. But now you see we have a 2x plus 12x. It's going to give us 14x. And then our 3. So this is now our final answer. So sometimes problems don't look like they're going to be a foiling type problem, but when you see that you have a binomial squared, that means that you know you have two terms times two terms, which we know we do foiling for. So for instance, this first example is already separated for you. When something's squared, that means it's times itself. Okay, that should be something familiar for you guys. So we write it out twice. If it had a cube up top, a 3, you would write it out 3 times. So that's however many times you're multiplying it by itself. So we have our y plus 6 times y plus 6. So we could work on that, but I do want to look at number 10 instead. So this example over on the right hand side, it says 4a minus 7 squared. So that means that I really have 4a minus 7 times 4a minus 7. It's multiplied by itself. This is a humongous mistake people always make, and not writing it out separately. You need to write it twice. So I'm actually going to write this in red, and I want you guys to make sure you write this down. You cannot distribute an exponent inside of parentheses. Okay, so often or not, people usually will just square the 4a and square the 7, but that's really not the case here. You're going to see that it would not give you the correct answer. So back to the problem we were working on, we're going to do our foiling. All right, so we're going to do our fours first. Got a little tongue-tied. So we have 4a times 4a, so you do your 4 times 4, and you get 16, and your a times a, and you get a squared. Now you're going to do your outer. So we have 4a times negative 7, so it's negative 28a. We have our inner, negative 7 times 4. Again, we have our negative 28a. And then our last terms, negative 7 times negative 7 becomes positive 49. So always be careful with your negative signs here. Just like every other problem so far, if you do have like terms, combine them. This is not a final answer yet. So our a squareds, we don't have anything to combine them with, so that's just going to say 16a squared. And then we do have negative 28a and negative 28a. So together, this is going to make negative 56a. And then 49 cannot be combined with anything, so it's just plus 49. Now we have our final answer. All right, and our last method is for when you do have a binomial, or really any polynomial, times any other polynomial. You can see that this looks similar, but there are some extra values here, right? Like this has 3 terms. This is technically a trinomial. This is a binomial. So you can see that I'm going to probably have a larger answer. I have more terms that I'm working with. So again, if you think about distributing, so think distribute. Okay, so that's all you have to do here. And we're going to take our time so that our work is organized and that everything's where it's needs to be. So we're going to do our 2x times our x squared. So we're just going to work with that 2x to get started. Okay, we're going to distribute it to every term in the other polynomial. So we have 2x times x squared, and that's going to give us 2x cubed. Remember, you add exponents. And we have 2x times negative 2x, so I know my sign will be negative 4x squared, because we have 2 times 2 and x times x. Now we just have one more step, right? We have another term we need to give this 2x to. So 2x times 1 is also just 2x. So we're done with that 2x. Now we can switch to using our negative 3. So now we're going to distribute our negative 3. We're going to distribute it to each term in the other polynomial. So it's going to be negative 3x squared. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6x. And negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. So this is definitely not a final answer. You still need to combine like terms. So our final answer is when we go through and I say, okay, I have 2x cubed, nothing to combine it with, so that's it. Then I have a negative 4x squared, and then I have a negative 3x squared. I can combine them, right? They have the same x, same exponent, so that's going to become negative 7x squared. And then I have 2x and 6x. So when I use them, I'm going to have 8x. And then we have our minus 3 with nothing to combine. Always make sure you combine like terms, and then you will end up with your most perfect little final answer.